Hey guys, Brian from PFC here with your training minute, as well as a drill to address something we call not from the ground. Something we see regularly in a training environment, and alarmingly, we see this a lot on body-worn camera footage, is that if a magazine falls out of a weapon, be it handgun, carbine, whatever, and it hits the ground, we're seeing officers, troops, students that are going after that magazine to fix their gun. There's a whole host of associated problems with this. Let's go ahead and chip away at those. The first one we see is if you have been shooting, if you've been engaging, and for some reason that magazine becomes dislodged and hits the ground, you're going after a partially depleted magazine to put that back into the gun. That's problematic. We should probably avoid that. A full magazine might do us better. The second reason, what if there is a problem with that magazine and that's the reason that it fell out? It's broken or it's not seating correctly, whatever that may be. Retrieving that magazine that's damaged or inoperable, unserviceable, putting that back in the gun, that has associated problems with it. Next, if we are, let's say, on a carbine and we're at close distance and we're chasing after that magazine, the answer to the problem is actually transitioning to a secondary weapon. So that's an issue. That's something that we should be conscious of. What else? If we're moving from out behind a piece of cover to retrieve that magazine, that's problematic. Also, how many repetitions do we have of loading off of the ground versus loading off of our equipment? We know that if we load off of our equipment, we're going to be grasping or grabbing a magazine with a given grip that's consistent across time and repetitions, and we can more swiftly get that in a positive seat on the weapon as opposed to randomly picking up a magazine off of the ground. That's a problem. Also think of the orientation of our head, our eyes, the top of our body when and if we bend forward improperly to get that magazine off the ground. Another thing, look at the terrain behind me, this natural terrain covered in rocks and cactus and thorns and who knows what. If that magazine falls and hits the ground, could we get debris inside of it? We've seen that occur that can then go up and lodge inside of the weapon. What if we don't have terrain like this and we have a solid surface that's concrete or paved or we're even indoors on tile or carpet? We regularly see bullets that will bounce and shift and slide or walk off of a magazine and then lessen the likelihood of a good positive seat. So the answer to this is simply load off your kit, load off your kit, load off your kit, with one exception being that if that's the only or the last magazine that we have. So how do we drill this? How do we inculcate this concept as opposed to just talking about it? We know that behavior is what's going to change behavior. So the drill simply works like this. This can be done ideally with the handgun. It involves bringing a handgun to a full load, placing it in our holster, and then reaching back and popping the magazine release so that the magazine is slightly out of the weapon. The weapon is then drawn and will fire. If that magazine falls free of the gun and the shooter detects that visually, physically, whatever it may be, we're building a repetition into them to get a fresh magazine, top the weapon off, and get back into the fight. If the magazine does not fall free of the gun, and we do experience the first shot going off because we have a full chamber, and then we experience the click after that, obviously the proper remediation would be to tap and rack to recycle around and get it into the chamber. We can't just have a conversation about it. We have to get those repetitions. It's alarming how often this happens. It's also one of those skills that when we bring it up and we talk about it, folks look at it, they shake their head and say, I'd never do that, and then mere moments later, they're the one doing it. Make this part of your routine. Stay safe.